Every morning, they saw her at the same desk, a timid banker who seemed to think of nothing but numbers. But that morning, when the bank transformed into a war zone and bullets flew, her eyes ignited with a different kind of light. The robbers underestimated her moves until she took them down without a single weapon. When this meek woman who saved the bank stepped outside, even the highest-ranking officer on site saluted, trembling. "Is this a dream?" the bank manager whispered, experiencing the shock of his life. Who was this woman? And where did those quiet hands gain such skill? Keep watching to find out. In the cold, polished marble corridors of the bank, the sound of routine echoed with the first light of dawn. The click of keyboards, whispered conversations, and the hum of the coffee machine. Amelia Vance sat amongst these sounds, always at the same desk. In her late 40s, she wore a simple beige cardigan and a plain skirt. Her hair was tied in a tight bun, and her gaze was usually fixed on her computer screen or documents. This quiet corner of the bank was almost a sanctuary for her, a haven away from the chaos of the outside world and the shadows of her own past. Among her colleagues, Amelia was known as quiet and reserved. Her voice was always low when she spoke, and her movements were measured. Manager John Davies described her as too thoughtful, a bit of a timid teller. Others mostly saw her as someone who lived only for numbers, lacking excitement and passion in her life. She worked in one of the bank's most secure, most boring departments, in the back office behind the teller windows. No one even quite remembered her name. They mostly called her the teller woman or the new hire. No one who thought they knew her had any idea that Amelia was in fact Colonel Amelia Vance, a decorated war veteran who had participated in the most dangerous operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, a high-ranking special forces operator decorated with countless medals. As Amelia listened to the laughter and whispers of her colleagues returning from lunch break, she mused on how fragile, how unpredictable the outside world truly was. While they discussed exchange rates, holiday plans, and new movies, Amelia's mind was occupied with a very different set of numbers. Threat assessments, risk analyses, evacuation routes. The lessons she had learned years ago on the dusty streets of Baghdad and the remote corners of Kandahar lay dormant here, overshadowed by her daily routine in her glass-walled office. She knew the security protocols for bank robbery drills by heart, yet no one ever questioned why she was so well versed in this information. They simply said she was too dedicated to her job or overly rule-bound. Once, the bank's security manager even sarcastically told her, after an overly realistic response during a robbery scenario, "Calm down a bit, Colonel. It's just a drill." At that moment, Amelia merely smiled faintly, thinking to herself, if only it were. A routine Tuesday afternoon was shattered by the sound of the bank's glass door exploding inwards. 3 masked, armed men stormed in. Shots fired into the air, the gunfire echoing off the bank's high ceilings. "Get down! Everyone get down!" Commands reverberated with the terrifying symphony of gunshots and panic-stricken screams. Customers and employees dropped to the floor in fear, some desperately trying to hide under desks. The security alarm began blaring, its siren piercingly loud. The robbers advanced towards the teller's counters, shouting, "Where's the vault? Hurry up, don't waste a single second." Even their masks couldn't conceal the anger and ruthlessness in their faces. Manager John Davies, legs trembling, tried to crawl under his desk, his breath hitched in his throat. Other employees were also in a state of panic, crying or frozen in place. Amelia's gaze sharpened instantly. That calm, detached expression was replaced with the keen, focused look she'd acquired years ago in the midst of war. Alarm bells began ringing inside her. This alarm wasn't from the bank's security system, but from the deepest corners of her mind. She immediately began analyzing the robbers' movements, the leader's gun grip and body language, the other two's perimeter control and eye movements, the shooter's position at the door. Every detail was like a map for her to read, a puzzle to solve. She instantly calculated their weak points, their escape routes, their contingency plans. It was as if she were rehearsing an operation she had planned years ago in Baghdad. The robber's leader approached the teller's counter, pointing his gun at one of the tellers. His voice was threatening. "Hand over the money, or I won't be responsible for what happens to you," he snarled. The young teller at the counter was trembling. Trying to stuff money into bags, her brain was frozen with fear, her hands unable to move faster. At that moment, one of the masked robbers from behind grabbed a hostage, a middle-aged woman, by the arm, trying to force her up. The woman screamed, her cry echoing throughout the bank. That was the moment everything changed for Amelia. This was no longer just a robbery. This was an operation where innocent people were in danger. And Colonel Amelia Vance would never remain passive in the middle of an operation. The Special Forces warrior within her had silently awakened. As the masked robber dragged the screaming hostage, the air in the center of the bank turned icy cold. The second robber let go of the hostage and turned around, his attention drawn by Amelia's calm but intense gaze. "What are you looking at, old woman? I told you to get down," he yelled, waving his gun towards her, a clear threat in his voice. Amelia didn't move from her spot. Her eyes never left the robber. This defiance even surprised the robber's leader. "Leave her, Tim. Let's not waste time. Grab the money," he shouted. Amelia, without breaking eye contact with the robber, instantly calculated his grip on the hostage, his body balance, and most importantly, his overconfidence. Years of Special Forces training, especially unarmed combat and neutralization techniques, every move ingrained in her muscle memory, now vividly replayed in her mind like a live scenario. She was unarmed, but she knew how to use her body as a weapon, how to neutralize an enemy unexpectedly. In the blink of an eye, Amelia moved. She was as silent and swift as a storm. She rapidly advanced towards the first robber, her footsteps almost inaudible. The robber, seeing Amelia approaching, was surprised and mocked her. "Come on, Granny, do you want to play too?" he sneered, extending his hand to push her. But Amelia's move was far swifter and more decisive than he anticipated. The moment he reached out, Amelia twisted the robber's arm, pulling him towards her with a speed and precision usually only seen in combat drills. The robber's balance was instantly lost. In a second, the robber found himself on the floor, writhing in pain. His gun had flown from his hand, bullets scattering across the marble floor. The other robbers didn't understand what was happening. They were frozen in disbelief. Bank employees and customers watched in stunned silence, witnessing Amelia's unexpected move. Manager John Davies, trembling under his desk, watched, his heart pounding in his chest. The leader of the robbers, eyes wide with disbelief, aimed his gun at Amelia. "What did you do?" he roared, his voice filled with panic and rage. "I'll kill you!" The third robber also raised his gun, but he hesitated. The bank had suddenly transformed into a real combat zone. No one would have guessed that this meek, silent teller would be the last hero inside. Indeed, their only hope. Amelia had trained for this moment for years. The only thing she hadn't expected was for the battlefield to be a bank. The leader and the third masked men aimed their guns at Amelia, furious. But Amelia's movements possessed the precision of a hunter, the composure of a surgeon. The confrontation unfolded like a silent, deadly ballet within the bank. In the midst of gunshots and the robbers' curses echoing, Amelia, in the blink of an eye, disarmed the leader and swiftly brought him to the ground. The others were paralyzed with shock and fear. The third robber lunged at Amelia, but her body was like a cushion, absorbing every blow, a flow directing every move. A moment later, he too was on the ground, writhing in pain. All the weapons in the bank were suddenly under Amelia's control. Everything in the bank had abruptly stopped. The only sound was ragged breathing. Amelia quickly moved the fallen robber's weapons out of reach and turned to the hostages. "You are safe," she said in a calm voice. "Help is coming." Her voice instilled hope in the panicked people. Manager John Davies, with trembling legs, emerged from under his desk. His eyes were fixed on Amelia, filled with shock and horror.
"Amelia, what did you do?" he whispered, his voice caught in his throat. Amelia, with a tired but determined smile, simply said, "Just doing my job." This job was unlike anything John Davies had ever seen in his banking career. Outside, the blare of sirens abruptly ceased in front of the bank. SWAT teams, heavily armed, advanced towards the bank. Leading them were SWAT Commander Mark Johnson, wearing his helmet and barking orders into his radio, and Police Chief David Peterson. As they burst through the doors, they saw the scene inside. The robbers neutralized, weapons secured, hostages safe. And in the middle of it all stood Amelia Vance, the meek, silent bank teller, with a slight weariness on her face. Colonel Johnson and Chief Peterson froze for a moment when they saw Amelia. Shock registered on their faces, followed by an incredible display of respect and admiration. Both simultaneously removed their helmets and snapped to attention.
As Colonel Mark Johnson and Police Chief David Peterson simultaneously removed their helmets and snapped to attention, an icy silence fell over the bank. "Colonel!" Colonel Johnson exclaimed, his voice trembling with respect. His eyes, however, clearly held the unspoken question. "What are you doing here?" Chief Peterson also nodded in salute, speaking at the same time. "Colonel Vance, we weren't expecting this intervention, but as always, excellent work." His words hung in the air, resonating in everyone's minds throughout the bank. Amelia Vance, her cardigan torn, hair disheveled, a slight abrasion on her forehead, but her posture still ramrod straight, met the gaze of the two military leaders with the same determined and calm look. She subtly nodded. Bank employees and customers watched in stunned silence. The teller they had deemed meek was now receiving salutes from the commanders of the city's most elite units. Manager John Davies, mouth agape, eyes wide, stammered, "Colonel? Her?" Other employees whispered to each other, "Colonel? Her?" Many of their faces showed a deep sense of shame. Amelia looked at the bank employees and customers with a tired smile. She saw that their faces, instead of fear, now showed surprise, admiration, and the dawning of a deeper understanding. "Everything is under control," she said, her voice calm and authoritative. "No one was harmed. Now, please assist the teams outside." The SWAT team flooded into the bank, handcuffing the robbers and meticulously collecting evidence. Colonel Johnson and Chief Peterson spoke briefly with Amelia, their voices low and respectful. As they prepared to leave, Colonel Johnson turned to Amelia and saluted one last time. "Colonel, as always, excellent work. If you have another operation, please let us know." Amelia smiled faintly. "Just doing my job, Colonel. And rest assured, I don't expect these kinds of operations either." Amelia Vance quietly exited the bank. Outside, ambulances, police cars, and a curious crowd awaited. Cameramen and journalists flashed their lights, but Amelia turned her back and walked away with calm steps. The morning she arrived as a timid bank teller was now a thing of the past. She was truth in the mirror. Behind her ordinary appearance lay the strength of a colonel, the resilience of a veteran, and the soul of a hero. Her quiet life that day showed the entire city that true heroism can shine in the most unexpected moments, far beyond anyone's expectations. This story proves how deceptive appearances can be, and that the greatest courage can sometimes come from the most unexpected places. True heroes do not live in headlines, but in hearts and in their silent actions. Share your own story with us. Have you ever been judged by your appearance? Or witnessed someone rise when no one believed in them? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters. Subscribe to Truth in the Mirror. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories and unexpected transformation moments. Hit the bell icon to be notified instantly of our new videos.